This ancient African knowledge could have changed the world. But colonial powers buried it. From stolen scrolls to erased kingdoms, the truth about Africa's lost science was never meant to be found. What if the version of African history we were taught was deliberately rewritten to erase something world-changing? Imagine ancient African civilizations not as scattered tribes, but as global intellectual centers, places where astronomy, mathematics, metallurgy, and even spiritual science flourished thousands of years before Europe's so-called Age of Enlightenment. But here's the twist. The very archives that could prove this were either stolen, destroyed, or sealed under colonial control. Let's begin with a simple question. Why is it that when we talk about ancient knowledge, people mention Greece, Rome, or Mesopotamia, but not Mali, Kush, or Kemet? Before colonial contact, Africa wasn't a continent waiting to be civilized. It was a network of kingdoms trading gold, salt, iron, and ideas. Scholars in Timbuktu debated the movement of planets while Europe was still burning witches. Egyptian priests studied the geometry that built the pyramids, while the Dogon people of Mali accurately described the invisible star Sirius B centuries before modern telescopes confirmed it. But when colonialism arrived, knowledge itself became a weapon. European explorers didn't just conquer land, they conquered memory. Libraries were looted, oral traditions dismissed as superstition, and sacred manuscripts shipped to museums for safekeeping. The Timbuktu manuscripts, hundreds of thousands of scientific and philosophical texts, were labeled irrelevant. The artifacts of Great Zimbabwe were dismissed as too advanced for Africans to have built them. In Egypt, early archaeologists scraped paint off statues to hide their dark skin tones. It was a total rewrite, an intellectual colonization designed to make Africa appear as a blank slate before Europe's arrival. But here's the twist. Colonial powers didn't destroy African knowledge because it was primitive. They hid it because it was powerful. Hidden in ancient temples, scrolls, and oral traditions were clues to lost sciences. Alchemy, sacred geometry, sound healing, and energy manipulation. Some scholars even suggest that the Great Pyramid of Giza was more than a tomb. It might have functioned as a resonant power generator, built with precision that still baffles modern engineers. Whether literal or symbolic, these mysteries point to one truth. Africa's ancient civilizations understood the universe in ways we're only beginning to rediscover. Now imagine you're standing in the Temple of Karnak. The walls are covered in hieroglyphs not of war, but of cosmic order, frequency, and light. The priests of Amun weren't just religious leaders, they were scientists of spirit. In Nubia, initiation schools trained minds to balance logic and intuition, to master both the seen and unseen. This wasn't superstition, it was a science of consciousness, encoded in rituals, symbols, and architecture. And here's the chilling part. These practices didn't vanish. They went underground. The ancient world knew secret brotherhoods and mystery schools, the keepers of forbidden knowledge. Egypt's priests, the Dogon initiates, the custodians of Eiffel wisdom, all protected truths that colonizers couldn't decode. When foreign powers invaded, these orders scattered, carrying fragments of knowledge into new lands and disguising them as myth or religion. Some of the hieroglyphs hint at the Great Silence, a deliberate concealment of knowledge until humanity was ready to understand. So when we talk about secret societies of Egypt and Nubia, we're not just talking about symbols or rituals. We're talking about the survival of African intellectual sovereignty. These brotherhoods acted as the immune system of African wisdom, preserving what colonialism tried to erase. The Brotherhood of the Serpent, the Guardians of Thoth, the Nubian priesthood of Amu. They operated in silence, their teachings hidden in plain sight, encoded in myths that modern minds dismiss as fantasy. But here's the twist. Modern secret societies might have borrowed from them. Look closely at Masonic symbols. The all-seeing eye, the pyramid, the compass and square. These aren't European inventions. Their origins trace back to Kemet, to African stoneworkers and astronomer priests who aligned monuments with the stars. What if modern Western mysticism is just a diluted echo of ancient African science? When colonial missionaries arrived, they understood this danger. They weren't just spreading religion, they were replacing cosmologies. African gods became devils, ancestral rituals became pagan, and wisdom was rebranded as myth. In their place came new narratives, Africa as a land of darkness, its people waiting for enlightenment. But even as books were burned and temples were looted, the knowledge survived, hidden in folktales, drum patterns, and sacred dances that carried encrypted codes of memory. Let's travel to Nubia, where black granite temples still stand under the desert sun. Archaeologists once thought these were mere copies of Egyptian design. But recent excavations reveal that Nubian engineers pioneered architectural methods long before Egypt's old kingdom. Their symbols of serpents, ankhs and suns weren't decoration. They were blueprints of life and transformation. What if Nubia was the spiritual capital and Egypt its public face? The deeper we look, the more the lines blur. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. Some of the greatest European scholars of the colonial era, like Hegel and Voltaire, knew Africa's intellectual heritage, yet dismissed it to protect their racial hierarchies. They argued that reason began in Greece, even though Greek philosophers openly studied in Egyptian temples. Plato himself admitted that his knowledge of Atlantis came from Egyptian priests. But acknowledging Africa as the mother of civilization would have dismantled the ideological foundation of empire. So, they buried the truths beneath centuries of propaganda. But here's the twist. What if we've been living in a historical blackout? The truth isn't lost, it's hidden in plain sight. Across the continent, elders still hold oral lineages of knowledge that trace back thousands of years. From Ethiopia's Kebra Nagast to the Akan, Adinkra symbols. From Yoruba cosmology to Dogon astronomy. These are not primitive beliefs. They're fragments of an ancient African science of reality itself. And now, modern science is beginning to catch up. Quantum physicists talk about vibration and frequency as the essence of matter, ideas long embedded in African cosmology. Geneticists trace humanity's oldest DNA lineages to Africa, confirming that the cradle of civilization wasn't a metaphor. It's literal. The future of human knowledge may lie in rediscovering what Africa already knew. So what does all this mean for us today? It means that reclaiming Africa's erased knowledge isn't just about pride. It's about restoring balance. The world has built its science on fragmented truths. Africa's legacy offers a bridge between the rational and the spiritual, the physical and the metaphysical. The ancients didn't separate science from soul. They understood them as one. And maybe that's the real secret the colonizers feared. a civilization that understands both the laws of the cosmos and the power of the mind cannot be controlled. You can enslave bodies, but never those who remember who they are. So the next time someone tells you Africa's history began with colonization, remember this. Before pyramids rose, before Greece was founded, before Rome built its empire, Africa was already teaching the world. The only question now is, are we ready to remember what was stolen?